Hi, welcome to Filmmaker IQ's Video Basement. Today we'll be reviewing the video capabilities of the Canon 1D Mark IV. The HD DSLR camera revolution is about 2 years old now, and there's still a considerable amount of controversy in certain circles surrounding their use. Basically, it boils down to two camps. One group of filmmakers who has never had access to great equipment, who now all of a sudden have in their hands a camera that's very good at mimicking the look of film. And then the other camp is a group of filmmakers who've had access to great equipment and now have to deal with this new toy that everyone's talking about. For the first group, the shortcomings of HD DSLR cameras are the price to pay for great video. For the latter, well, it's just one more reason to dislike the current fad. Well, since the much-hyped season finale of House aired that was shot on the Canon 5D Mark II, it's pretty clear to me at least that these cameras are here to stay, or at least until camera companies come out with something better, and you know they will. Which brings us to the Canon 1D Mark IV. Many thanks to B&H Photo for sending over an evaluation version of this camera. The Canon 1D is Canon's flagship DSLR camera. The fourth generation adds the HD video that we've been talking about. Being that this is FilmmakerIQ.com, we are going to focus almost exclusively on the video aspect of the camera. That's not to say that this camera doesn't take some extraordinary photos. It does. Coupled with a fast 10 frames per second burst, this camera is an excellent choice for sports and nature photography. But what really drew my interest when I saw a pre-production model at NAB last April was the low light performance of the 1D. I pointed the camera at a dark shadow and pumped up the ISO, and I could turn that black shadow into white on the frame. So the first thing I did with the 1D when I got my hands on it was to pit it up against my 5D Mark II, which I purchased about 2 months ago, in a low light cage match to death, something like that. I used a Canon 1.4 35mm lens, again thanks to B&H for sending that over, to compare the cameras. Now the difference in the shots is actually due to the Canon's 1D's 1.3 crop factor. So as you see a little bit tighter on this shot. First set out to shoot in my garage, but I found out quickly the light coming through the cracks in the doors was just way too much for a low light test. I moved to the downstairs bathroom, which had almost complete total darkness, and I began to search for smaller and smaller devices to light my subject with. Yes, a cell phone and a match could do the trick. Both the 5D and the 1D were capable of handling low light, but the 1D just took it a little bit further. Even the faint glow of the black screen on a 5D was visible if held a few inches away from the subject matter. Now it's really important to pause here and make one very important clarification. The 1D is not night vision. It is not magic. You will still need light. The revolution now is that anything that emits light can now be used as a light. To put the camera through some real-world paces, I put the 1D to use on a short experimental film titled Pitch Black. It's a story about a woman temporarily blinded by a car accident who is attacked by a psychotic killer and ultimately ends in a mortal combat in the basement. A typical Saturday night for me. So instead of me telling you what the camera is capable of doing, I'm going to show you some untreated footage from the camera from the shoot. For the final movie, I will generally desaturate all the footage to create more of a moody tone to it. This will actually reduce the amount of color noise that seeps into the image at high ISO values. Starting off, we shot some day scenes. We were able to get a very natural look using only sunlight through the windows. This enabled the production to move very quickly without having to reposition the lights. Now moving to a well-lit set type environment. This is a shed we shot during the day, but we made it look like night. We utilized 4 small lights, 3 250 watt lights and one 500 watt Omni light. All these lights were dimmed to well below the 1250 watt total capacity that we had. Here's an even smaller lit scene, this time with a 250 watt Dito light alone and a bounce card. So far so good, but the real fun begins at night. This entryway shot was done with a Dito light 250 watt with a CTB or daylight filter gel projecting a window pattern on the ground on the front door. There's another 250 watt Lowell Pro light bouncing off the ceiling to provide some fill. Very moody. Here we are at the accident. This is lit with a 2K Fresnel light about 15 feet away and car headlights. We added a little bit of rain from a hose to create a little more of a stormy feel. Now, let's get in the shower. This first shot was through the cantilever windows. This was shot with a single 250 watt Dito light, again, as a backlight. I want to pause the video right here so you can see how wide the lead actor's pupils are. Okay, you don't see that in typical film. It is dark. It is really dark, and we are getting a very clear image. And the actual shower itself. This was lit entirely with a single night light, about 5 feet away from the shower glass. A night light. That's it. And here we are at the heroine's bedside. That's a Dito light 250 watt outside the window, creating that moonlight glow as a CTB or daylight filter. We got 250 watt Lowell Pro light hitting the ceiling for a bounce, and this is actually a BlackBerry right here that's lighting her face. This Steadicam shot, although it appears to be rather dark, is actually lit with quite a few lights. A couple 500 watt Lowell Omnis outside the window provides some of that moon glow, and a Dito light projecting the window pattern on the entryway, again with that 250 watt to provide some fill. Every other light that was in the shot was part of the house, including the light from the front door. The reason we had to pump more light in than usual is we wanted to stop down the camera to provide a larger depth of field. When working on a Steadicam without a remote focus puller, it's impossible to keep things in focus if the DOF is too shallow. So you want to widen that up and get a little more room to work. Still, the set was pretty dark to the eye, and if it weren't for the 1D's low light prowess, well, there's just no way this shot would have been possible. And lastly, we move into the basement. This is the extreme lighting challenge. This is lit here with a Pro Light 250 watt with a red gel. The light is situated on screen right and behind the stairs, and it stays there for the entire shot. Here you get a little extra light with the iPhone, just kind of illuminating his face. And that's the only light that's on set. For a bounce, we did use a white styrofoam mannequin head, just because it happened to be around and it worked real well. I show you this footage because it's frankly amazing what you can do with a 1D and a simple light kit and some creativity. The Canon 1D Mark IV is the top of the line HD DSLR camera in terms of video on the market today. I don't think I need to show you any more footage to prove that to you. That takes a beautiful image. That said, it still comes with all the problems that plague the HD DSLR cameras. Number one, lack of a good sound input. You either have to record sound separately like we did on Pitch Black, or invest in a preamp designed for these cameras that goes in a little mic jack on the side. Rolling shutter effect. Although less prominent than on a camera like the 5D, you're going to see vertical lines slant as you whip pan left and right. You also see that fast-moving objects have a little bit of the jello effect, they kind of wobble. Well, this is not as noticeable when you shoot 720-60p mode, which we'll talk about in a sec. Number three, you can't view through the viewfinder and an external monitor. It's one or the other. Number four, line skipping. This is how a camera like this creates an HD image out of a sensor that's much bigger than HD. It actually skips lines. And this can create some weird artifacting on objects that have like tight patterns. But the Canon 1D Mark IV does bring some advances to the HD DSLR table. Number one, the body weight and the configuration actually makes this camera very easy to do handheld shot. Number two, the HDMI now outputs an 1080p signal while recording. There's now a 1280, 720, 60p recording mode that we just talked about. This is really good for shooting fast motion and also for creating that real slow motion. Record at 60p and drop it down to like 30p or 24p. You get that really smooth slow motion. Number four, the 1.3 crop factor is a bit of a double-edged sword. It will help you get a little bit more out of your lens. It creates a little more clarity, and you lose some of the edge problems that you have with your lenses. Although it can also be a detriment if you want to maximize your wide-angle lens, because now your wide angle won't be as wide. Compared to the 5D Mark II, the Canon 1D Mark IV does just about everything better. The image is clearer and crisper, and the low light performance is remarkably better. If you're looking to buy a 1D, the question is going to boil down to a matter of dollars. At almost twice the cost of the 5D, are those improvements really worth the extra cash? That's something you have to answer. If you shoot a lot of sports and you need to be able to take 10 photos a second and shoot video at the same time, well, the answer is clear. The 1D is your camera. If you're working in a film environment where you can control the lighting to an extent, well, it's a little bit harder question to answer. Yes, the 1D is superior to the 5D in just about every respect, but at twice the cost, that money could go into accessories, which you're going to need, not to mention better glass. Still, bottom line, the 1D is a fantastic camera, and it really is the Cadillac of HD DSLRs. The lines between film and video are blurring fast, my friends, if it's not almost totally gone. As technology marches forward, it's going to be more about what you put in front of the camera than the camera itself. But then again, it's always been like that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at filmmakeriq.com.